Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to dive into triggers, and we're going to talk about an armor certification course and the importance of learning the art and nuances of building and putting together the perfect rifle. It ought to be a great podcast. I think this is worthwhile listening to. We do a lot of training here, especially with new employees. And it's just amazing the wealth of knowledge that you learn over the years that you're trying to pass along and trying to help everybody get the best out of the equipment and just all the little things. So we have some new hires that we've been working on training, and I think they're absolutely amazed on just the little nuances that you got to get after and all the little details that you just don't think about or you take for granted. So that'll be a great podcast. We're looking forward to this one. So without further ado, here we go. All right, before we get started, I do want to say a quick thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. They're made from our Canadian friends in the north. They are, in my mind, and we're going to talk about them here in this podcast, is the safest trigger, easiest to install by end users, and what I would consider with the roller bearing system, one of the nicest triggers that you can break. So if you want the best and you want to upgrade your trigger, we really recommend stopping over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com and seeing all the great selections they have today. We also want to thank Krieger Barrels. Krieger is the maker of fine cut rifle barrels made in the great state of Wisconsin. They are a family owned and operated business. They have been with us for years. We have used them for decades. They are one of the best in the world at what they do. And they offer a new program called Krieger Direct where you can log on, get your barrel, and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So if you want the best and you need it now, stop over to KriegerBarrels.com. That's KriegerBarrels.com today. So I'm really going to recommend that you stop over and listen to some of our older podcasts or just, search for triggers through our archives. And you'll see me where I've talked about triggers a lot in the past and talk about the safety aspect of it. I don't want to make this podcast rehash that, but if you want a great listen and you want to have your ears perked up to things you might not think about while you're selecting these things, you can search out some of the different episodes that we have posted talking about triggers, and I really recommend going back and listening to them, especially on the safety part of it. What I want to talk about here is when you're selecting your trigger, the importance of not just quality, but ease of installation and adjustment. There are a lot of great match grade triggers out there that you can choose from. I mean, a lot. And some of them require that you hold parts and pieces in place while you're driving your trigger pins in. Some do not. Some have 3 screws to adjust for over travel, tension, and pull weight. Others, it's a dance. You can actually pull the triggers completely apart, reassemble them, wipe them all out. I get that part of it as well. We have gone through over the years, we're talking decades now, of all the different trigger makes and models. And you can get a lot of really great breaking and shooting triggers for sure. I think when I tried to narrow down what triggers we would end up using in all of our custom rifles here, it was about trying to stay with something that was a known quality and that the customer themselves could not get themselves into trouble with when it came to adjusting the pull weight or trying to work on the trigger or pulling it back apart again. And I think for me, it's about safety and making sure that when the customer is working with the rifle, that look, that trigger's not a firing mechanism, it's an anti-firing mechanism. That trigger isn't meant to make your gun go bang. It's to keep it from going bang until you pull the trigger. And so it's not just a single-sided sword. There's 2 sides of this sword, and both are just as dangerous, right? And so I guess when I look at a trigger, I'm not looking at, okay, hey, can I make it go bang? Because almost every trigger in the market will do that. I want a trigger that allows me to put stop gaps in place or barriers that keep it from going bang when people make mistakes or when they're getting into territories they're not used to or adjusting things that they don't know what they're doing or they watch something on YouTube and it gets them in harm's way and they don't know it, right? Or a rifle that you drop it and it has the potential to fire, or the different screws you can turn and in one way making it a safe rifle and another way setting yourselves up that the only thing holding that trigger from firing is the friction of 2 parts rubbing against each other, no spring tension. So When I look at triggers, I look at it from the aspect of I want to know everything in there that's meant to keep it from going bang until you're ready for it, not the working parts that make it go bang, right? So when you're picking out triggers, and this is how the approach has been, is it's safety, ease of installation, ease of adjustment, and not letting the customers get themselves exposed to creating a dangerous situation to where they can have a rifle trigger in a unsafe condition. For me, here's the deal, right? I have been on the firing line with children, father, son, father, daughters, husband, wives. These are people's loved ones. Those are the people that could be put in harm's way, hurt, or even killed if this door gets cracked open just a little bit to allow the customer to make a mistake. And so why do we use TriggerTech triggers? They advertise on our podcast, sure. And you could argue that we're saying that because they're paying us to, but our rule here at the podcast is we don't allow anybody to advertise here whose product we do not use. I have had people send us checks to put ads on our podcast, and I've sent them back. They're not products we use. We don't support them. We want to make sure that if we're going to sell or allow people to advertise on our podcast, it is something we truly believe in. And I think that runs in every part of our business. And anything that we sell a customer and any product that we offer for sale, we actually use these products. We don't bring anything here, although it would be a lot more profitable for us if we did, but we don't bring products in here we just don't believe in, or we don't use, or we don't shoot, or we wouldn't recommend, because that's not who we are. And so there are lots of scopes manufacturers we could bring in and make a gazillion more dollars than some of the optics that we do offer. But we don't do that because it would be for selfish reasons, and I think it would be disingenuous on our part to say that, oh yeah, here's 5 scopes that they're fine. We don't believe that. We don't think they're fine at all, and we think where they're opening up an avenue to not enjoy themselves at long range with it or have repeatable issues. So when we look at triggers, it's the same thing. And yeah, they advertise on our podcast, but we asked them if they would like to advertise because we used our product, not to advertise the product. And I will say that the reason I think TriggerTech is the trigger to go to, and it's the only one that we offer, is the fact that it's end user, easy to install. Everything stays in place till you drive your pins in. So you're not holding your trigger together from springing apart and pieces going everywhere while you're trying to put it in, which is common for Remington 700 replacement triggers. And then when you put it in with a single stage trigger, you only have one screw to adjust, and that's just for the pull weight. And then on a 2-stage, it's for the pull weight for first and second stage. But with the roller bearing system, you can only set it to the lightest setting. You can't get yourself into harm's way as far as the way that the manufacturers have the trigger set up. Now, so when you're installing your trigger and you're adjusting your pull weight and you're making these adjustments, which I think is awesome, right? I love playing. We just put 2-stage triggers on our benches for test triggers. So with our new rifle kits that we're sending out, they're being sent out without triggers, and the customers install their own trigger. And by the way, if you purchase a rifle kit from us, it comes fully assembled. It's ready to actually install the trigger. But we actually test fire the rifle. We build it, we put one of our triggers in it, we actually go and test it through the range, and then we pull our trigger back out. It's not part of the purchase. It's just there for testing and evaluation, and then you'll install your own trigger from there. And it was really nice with the 2-stage, because we were talking about what do we want to use for triggers-wise for test triggers, and the vote was 2-stage. All of us feel that fantastic accuracy shooting type trigger, so we can pull from the first stage to the second stage and a nice clean break for the second stage. I agree. On hunting rifles, you'll hear me talk about, I like single stage, especially if you grew up shooting single stage, so you don't have that first stage to think about or to blow through. But when you're really testing for accuracy, boy, oh boy, we put the TriggerTech Special 2 stages. One's on each bench right now, and we just got back from the range here this morning with one of our new hires, and he shot great. The rifle shot great. Love the triggers. It's just absolutely amazing. So when you're selecting triggers, just as a general purpose, I always look at the safety part first. Remember, the trigger's job is to keep it from firing until you want it to, and then fire when you're ready to shoot. But for me, the more important part is it's there to keep your gun from firing, not just to make it fire. So without dragging it out too long here, TriggerTech is the way to go. I wholeheartedly believe that. I don't think tearing triggers apart and cleaning them and putting them back together with all these parts and pieces. I think for a lot of shooters that aren't familiar with working on triggers or how everything works in them, they can get themselves in harm's way or make errors to damage things, and none of those scenarios are good. So if you want my honest opinion, that's all I would look at is I would go to Trigger Tech and just order my trigger. Now, here's the other thing I want to touch base with. If you order one of our custom rifle building kits, right, and you order one of our kit rifles, Trigger Tech has graciously given us a discount code to give to everybody who purchases a rifle that when they go and buy their trigger, they can save a couple bucks. We have no strings attached. We don't get any money from it. It's just one of those things that they did that was nice for our customers that buy the rifles. We'll give you the discount code. We'll sort of walk you through which trigger we think will be a good fit for you. And then you can go and purchase a trigger and save some money doing it. So stop over to Trigger Tech if you want to take a look at their full line of triggers. And you'll see new triggers coming out every year. But I will tell you that my heart is in Trigger Tech. I think they've got it. And for me, it's the safety's number one. So getting on to some new things that you'll see on the website, we have our new armor certification course out. And it just got launched last week. This is something that we've been working on for a couple of years, actually, and getting the system in place for the Ace rifle system to be sent out as a kit for customers to build and maintain. I want to go over a little bit about why you might want to consider joining the Armorers course here, whether you're military, law enforcement, government, or if you're a civilian that would like to learn how to do this type of stuff. One of the cool things about the rifles, and I think just working with Todd yesterday at the bench on how much we can actually share the little nuances, right? The attentions to detail that go into long-range shooting, go into building custom rifles or assembly or maintaining, right? And so customers will come in and they'll do a custom delivery day, which will go over the cleaning and maintenance and all that thing. But to go one step further, you can come in and spend a day with us for our armor certification course, and we can actually certify you to actually build the rifle from the individual components, allowing you to buy all the parts and assembling them yourself. Now, it is a day class, and it's a full day at that, and there's tests, and you get a certification. The certification is good for 3 years. If you're a store owner and you're ever interested in offering custom rifles to your customers, you can send somebody in, get them certified, but they are the only person certified to build rifles. If you want somebody else to build rifles, they can't be trained by this person. They actually individually have to come here and be certified. The reason being is just like we were talking about triggers, it's easy just to issue instructions and say this is how it goes. But when you get people in a hands-on situation and you get them to touch and feel the parts and sort of see and hear, you get a chance to dive into the bushes on the details. And it's the details that matter. It's the little things that we've learned over decades of doing this stuff that take a rifle from good to great to just a lifelong dream of the best rifle you'll ever own. And for us, the Armorers course allows you to build that rifle up, but then rebuild it, or more importantly, keep it in that condition for long term. So, for example, if you shoot barrels out, you can actually remove the ace and replace the barrel and be right back to grade A condition again, just as if the rifle was brand new out of the box, and it will shoot exactly the way it did when it was brand new. One of the beauty parts of the ace system. The other part is you can change calibers. Now, there's a difference between purchasing one of our ace barrels for installing on your receiver after you purchase the rifle, because we'll install the ace on the barrel and you'll install that as a complete unit on and off your action. That's pretty straightforward. We're going to have some videos for that. Easy to do, does not require the certification course. If you want to learn how to remove the ace from the barrel, then that requires the class and going over all of the tools and the details and the benches and how the little things work, showing you all the important things that will make you a great builder. Now, the one thing that I want to throw out there too is that it's not just here you go, come and take this class and go brain dead for 8 hours and we're going to get you a certification. This really is designed for both store owners as well as military and law enforcement armorers. And the reason is they're going to have to maintain a fleet of rifles or a small armory of 3, 5, 10 rifles. And we want them to be able, with one person and very simple tools, to be able to take any rifle at any time and go in and with the simple processes of replacing the core parts or changing out to something else, they can keep those rifles in service without leaving their possession. So think about currently, if you have a rifle go down, you either have to send it out to have it rechambered, order a pre-fit and hope it works. But in all those scenarios, it's got to be sent out. And it's a custom work. You might not get that same reamer that you had before. You might not even get the same gunsmith you had before. And so you're always rolling the dice, and you've got a rifle or a piece of equipment out of your possession. In these case scenarios, once you're certified, You could have a small little inventory of parts, or when you need it, order your parts, and the rifle goes in, gets broken down, and an hour later comes back out in like new condition, ready to go back into service again. That's what the armorer's course or certification is for. And there's actually a test involved in it. And so I sat in 2 one-week classes over the last probably month, and for people attending the class, some pay attention and some are just there because their employer is paying them to be there, right? And they're just going through the motions. It's a vacation. They're away from work and they just get to, show up 20 minutes late, an hour late, and then leave early and then just do half-ass effort through the class. There is a test and there's a certification process you have to go through and complete and pass in order to be certified to do this type of work. So if you send an employee or if you come here, just send me the parts, and I'm only sitting here because I have to be. You still have to pass the certification test, and you have to do a full assembly and pass all the critiques that we're going to do. And then upon completion and satisfactory on our end that you are certified and allowed to purchase individual components. So we take that part pretty seriously because, well, let's face it, they're real guns, right? So one of the classes is launched. We did one in December. We have one in January. You'll probably see one come up in February and March. We're probably going to try to run right now maybe one a month, and it's a limited to 6 participants. So when you come here, there's not going to be 8 or 10 or 20. What we've learned over the years is because this is such a hands-on class that we need the numbers of the participants way down so we can spend time with everybody, because we're going to do more than just show you how to install the ace and how to break the rifle down. We're going to show you how to properly put a scope on that you can take it on and off the rifle 100 times and clean it and put it back on and not change your zero. We're going to show you tricks to make sure that your rails can't loosen up. We're going to show you all the little things that we've done for 20 years to get rifles to a level to where, for example, we just got back. Todd and I went to the range this morning bright and early. We just finished up a 300 Win Mag and we just finished up a 6.5 Creedmoor. And I said to Todd, here, you're going to shoot them this morning. First 3 shots out of the gun, and both guns under half. And I guarantee you one's probably close to a quarter with the first 3 rounds. And Todd was just absolutely fascinated that these were guns that he built. So he went through the process here. And I know last night we worked late, and I was going through, and I could see it in his eyes that he was just like overwhelmed at all of these little things that we pay attention to, these little things that we do as we go through to start the process of completing the build. The attention to detail is so minute that it's as much of an art as it is a craft. And I could see in his eyes, he was like, oh my God, there's so much to remember. And I was like, yeah, it is. And we have things written out, and of course our processes and procedures. But as we're going through the little details of all of these little things that we do, I think he's just fascinated on just how in depth it really goes, and how much, even though he's been around rifles his whole life, how much goes beyond that. And this is the secrets, right? And so we took the rifles that he built this morning. We were down here about 6:45 out of the shop on our way with fresh coffee. And he shot both rifles. I'll put up on Facebook if you want to see the rifles that Todd built. I'll put them up on Facebook along with the groups. And we didn't cherry pick the groups. These were the first groups out of the gun in both cases. Todd's a very honorable person. He's a very, very awesome, team member here. We don't cherry pick and tell stories and then put something up that's not true. It's not us. But I'm going to post up on Facebook both of Todd's rifles that he built as well as the groups that he shot. You will be absolutely stunned. And I think for him, the aha moment was that as he built the rifles, right? He was like, oh my God, I wouldn't believe a rifle shoots like this right out of the gate. I mean, I could see it in his eyes that all the hard work that we've done over the last month, because Todd's been with us about a month now, and all the training and all the things that I'm in his ear talking about that, it's like going into like massive details. It's just like too much information. You watch a teenager just melt like, hey, you're telling me way too much stuff here, right? And so he's gone through a month of that, and I know it's a lot to take, and I know it's a lot of details and they're not big deals, but they're details, and they are in the completed rifle. And I could see as we're going through the processes, it's just like, oh my gosh, another thing, And so as we're going through, I think today was the aha moment that, wow, this is the results. These are the rifles that you built We took them to the range. You shot them. Now, Todd's been through our shooting school, and he's been shooting for quite a long time. He's a very skilled shooter. But both rifles right out of the gate, the 6.5 Creedmoor, I would be shocked if it's over a quarter minute. I mean, it's just, and it was factory ammo for both rifles. It was not hand loads. And what he thought was amazing is that was the scope off of one of our school guns. We just bounced it over. You'll see on one, the 301 mag, the group was just a little low, and then the other one was almost spot on. Like, he was just shocked you could move our scope from rifle to rifle and still be on paper and almost in the middle, and that it worked that way. But, one of the reasons why we want to have the certification class is to go over the details like we did with Todd and saying, look, here's the minute things you got to pay attention to. These are the things that matter. These are the stuff that takes that and adds that last 5% to that rifle that just takes it over the top to something that's not just great, but something special. And getting to share that with you in a small class setting and going over all of these things for those that are as passionate about it as we are, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll get you certified, and you can buy parts and pieces at will and put rifles together. You can change calibers. You can even change aces. So, like, for example, you build a 22 Creedmoor, and you just want to build a 223 for your daughter to go out and shoot for the rest of the summer, shooting woodchucks or taking prairie dog hunting. You could break your rifle down, remove your 22 Creedmoor ace, install the 223 ace onto the same barrel, and put it back together, change your bolt head, and now you've turned your match gun or your 22 Creed long range gun into your varmint gun or your prairie dog gun. So we think there's a lot of value to that, and being able to change the rifle to suit current needs, change it to fit what you're going to need in the future, and not just have a big collection of firearms. It's like having a big collection of cars that just all have very specific purposes. You wind up with a lot of money tied up in it, and you never really get good with any of them. Where here, it's your rifle. You know, you just change it a couple of parts and pieces, off to the races. You could take your match gun, and we did the opposite, but so I'll share with you a funny story. But you could take your match gun and take the weights out of the chassis, put a carbon barrel on it, and now you've got a 10 to 12 pound hunting rifle. And it's the same chassis you've been shooting all summer in matches, just a little bit lighter. We did the opposite. We had a customer come up from the great state of Louisiana. His name was Chap. He flew the whole way up here in his private airplane, which I thought was cool. It's a tail dragger. I would love to get my pilot's license someday. I've got some hours. Our business is really taken off, and we're growing, so I'm trying not to be distracted with all of it. But it was really hard because we had two customers here. Both were pilots, and one flew up in his own private airplane, which was a tail dragger, which is what I would love to learn to do, right? And so I went up and picked him up at the airport, a couple miles from our shop here, and I was like, oh my God. And my wife was like, you're going to go back after your pilot's license, aren't you? And I was like, no. So, but anyway, what was fun was he did the opposite. He had built a 6.5 Creedmoor and an ultralight hunting rifle and wanted to try the 22 Creedmoor. So he was here for about a day and a half for our private build stuff. And we switched him over to a 22 Creed, which he loved, in a really short, lightweight barrel. But then he was like, hey, what about a 22-inch steel barrel and just a little bit of weight in to calm it down to make my hunting gun my long-range gun? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he left here with a carbon barrel on a 6.5 Creed to a 22 Creed, 22-inch heavy barrel with weights added to it, to make it his long-range varmint gun. It didn't make it crazy heavy, but it's just one of those cool things that you can do when customers come in and they're doing this. But he did the opposite. Now, we did it here for him in our build assist, but what we would like to be able to do is turn the keys over to like-minded and safety-oriented and people that are just passionate about building rifles and shooting, is train them up so they can do all this whenever they want, and at their own convenience. And for me, as we're growing, we've done a lot of work for some different law enforcement agencies. And so one of the things that we want to offer out there is, I was on CERT teams. I was a police officer. I was law enforcement. I was military, as MP, aviation, all that stuff. Being able to bring those guys in and train somebody on their department on how to maintain the rifles and be that armor that can take rifles and change them up as needs change, as well as change out parts and keep them in service without them leaving your possession. And so the armor certification really is for those guys, but we're going to open it up to the public for those that, like us, that just love to build stuff and want to play with things and change things up as needed. Or if you're a gun store owner and you like to offer a custom rifle or custom rifles to your customers, we could actually train you as a components-based company here and support you with the product and allow you to finish the product there however your customer would need it. So basically, we would be the core part of the rifle. and then you would take it from there with all the finished components, as well as, getting it Kellers and all the cool things that customers can do. So we're really excited for what's happening in the future. You can see the Armor certification course. They are online right now. You can stop over and you can see it. We also have one slot we just had open up, I believe, for the last of our shooting schools for this year, and 2024 dates are up and posted. And so if you'd like to join us for the shooting schools, we have capped them at 5 students per class. We've kept it that way for about 5 years. And it really just keeps the quality of the class at that super high level, allows us to spend a lot of time with everybody, just like it did with Todd, going through and training and all the details that we can share where we're not drowning in people. And so the classes are live. They're going to be limited to the number of schools we are going to do. So you can stop over to Wolf Precision. If you register early, we take $50 off as our early bird special. You can bring your rifle or use one of ours, just have to be suppressed. Also, I want to throw out there too, just real quick, is that we have 16 and a half hours of our online long-range shooting school now posted live. And for me, I find that amazing. Imagine like ordering a long-range shooting school DVD kit, and each DVD is 1 hour, and having over 16 DVDs, right? So we're really excited. We're getting into session 3, I guess, would be day 3 of our shooting school. We'll be posting up a new video later tonight, and that's been going great. We have clients attending from around the world, which we're really excited about. So that's growing. We hope to have that complete in series, and then putting bonus content up as we get through fall and winter, and then in the next spring. But we're really close to completing the entire online course, which is our in-person school that you can attend from the convenience and comfort of your own home. So a lot of people want to come and attend a school. Sometimes we're really far away, and sometimes we're just too expensive. It's a lot of expense just getting here, getting a flight, getting hotels and everything else. So you can attend the online long-range shooting school, really getting just as much, if not more, because we're able to take our time and go over more things in the training portion of it. And you can attend it from the convenience and comfort of your own home. And it's subscription based. So you could log on for a couple months, attend the class, get your feet underneath you. A couple months later, you're getting rusty. You can log back in, re-sign up, go over the videos that you need to go over again to freshen up. And then you can unsubscribe and go back and shoot again. So at any time, you could come back and watch videos and go back into sessions that you need refreshers on. It's there just at your fingertips, which we think is really nice as well. So before we continue on and wrap up the podcast, I want to thank MDT. MDT really makes great chassis. We have lots of different makes and models here at our shooting school. One of my favorites personally is the J. Allen. I have it on one of our school rifles. It's actually my personal rifle as well. So if we have an extra student at the school here, or we need an extra rental rifle for any reason, I let students actually shoot this rifle. But they make lots of different makes and models. MDT has really grown as a great company. We'll talk about stocks and chassis in the next podcast, things to watch for and how to bed them and things that we do here, because the next several series is going to be building custom rifles. This one I want to talk a little bit more about triggers as well as the Armor certification course. But the next one we're going to actually dive into chassis and talk about some of the things you have to pay attention to. But if you want to upgrade your rifle, if you have a factory rifle, upgrading a rifle chassis or something that fits you better, that you can adjust to fit your build, you can get a good cheek weld. All of these things are really important, and you can stop over to MDT and look at their great selection for different makes and models that they offer, as well as all of the manufacturers that they offer the chassis for. So you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us on the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. We're really growing in the rankings, and that's thanks to you, the listeners. If you'd like to support the show, you can stop over to Patreon and look for Wolf Precision. It's $3 a month. We call it the Wolf Pack. Thank you, everybody that's done that. We certainly appreciate the support for the show as well. Also, if you don't mind leaving us a really nice comment on whatever station you're listening to this podcast on, that helps a lot with the ratings for us. And if you know somebody that's into shooting or custom rifle building and you wanted to share the podcast, we want to say thank you for doing that as well. That really helps us a lot here at the show. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dotson of Wolf Precision, and you're listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.